A number of years ago, I was preparing a lecture, and I was on the internet, and I was trying to discover some images of that large expanse we call Central Asia. And I found some beautiful pictures, and they all had in the lower right-hand corner, Dan C. Waugh. And so I said, who is this Dan Waugh? And I looked him up, and I discovered that he is one of the world's greatest authorities on the Silk Road in Central Asia. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here with us. If I look at this map, and you talk about Central Asia, where is exactly Central Asia, as you define it?
I think I'd be pretty broad, and I'd want to draw my line all the way around like that. Essentially, anything that is between China and
Right.
Rome.
Okay. Not a heavily populated area, though.
It depends on where you go.
Okay.
If you average it out, no.
Okay.
If you focus on some of the oases, very
heavy.
densely
Okay.
populated.
Here's another way of thinking about this. Look at this map now that shows you the Han Empire in China and the Roman Empire and all the blank space in between. And so in some sense, what Dan Waugh does is he fills in the blank space through his own travels and his own research. But you began, I found out, as a student of physics at Yale, and then you came to Harvard, and you ended up becoming an historian of Central Asia. How did that come about?
I think the critical thing here was that Harvard, and I hardly need to remind you of this, Harvard is a place where you can explore and your imagination can lead you in ways that you didn't expect. And what I found at Harvard was that there was a great array of experts amongst the professors who, at the time I was there in graduate school, began to teach on Central Asia, and I began to audit their courses.
So that's how it began. And at University of Washington, where you taught after you got your PhD from Harvard, you eventually taught a course in the Silk Road.
Yes.
And how did you prepare for that?
Well, the Silk Road, and we'll talk more about what it is and isn't, is an impossibly big subject. I thought I knew a fair amount about the western part of the story, Western Asia, the Islamic world, the Mongols, who are an important part of this story. What I didn't know much about was East Asia. I knew virtually nothing about China. And in 1998, I had this wonderful opportunity to go on a program that was being offered at the Mogao Caves, one of the famous Buddhist sites in western China.
Is that Mogao is where Dunhuang is?
Yes, at Dunhuang. And so we had a month and a half where I began to learn about Buddhist art. I began to learn about the history and the exploration of that part of what we call the Silk Roads.
As we go on in this module, we'll be using lots of images that Dan has made over the years as he's traveled back and forth along the Silk Road. And in fact, I brought along this. You're the editor of this wonderful journal called The Silk Road.
Yes.